and they're all installed, but there's 3 of them, I think. And I think that's maybe all we ordered. And I think the ones that they did come in wrong size, but I think now those are the right size ones that are installed.
They are.
So I think that's all set.
Okay.
It's the sensory wave that doesn't have any.
Oh, okay.
And I did get a quote, but I get expensive.
I'm ready.
I got a quote for 6 because there's room for 6.
I know.
And it's over 12. Maybe.
Because that's how we got that grant.
Yeah, that's right. But he put a little discount in there too,
Yeah.
you know, and it was, it would, you know.
Thank you for
Hey,
stopping.
Troy, say something into your mic.
The what?
The poster.
The
Troy,
poster?
Oh,
say
sorry.
something into your mic, quick.
Say, no, that mic.
Testing.
I don't know why we're stuck on John.
Here, but it's okay, right? We're okay otherwise?
Well, I mean,
What poster thing?
I thought.
Oh, on the the poster.
Yeah.
I'll just
okay.
pin us. The only problem
Yeah.
is that if
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
tries to
Yeah.
talk at some
Right.
point,
Oh, yeah,
it's gonna
right. Yeah.
happen.
Oh, yeah. That great. Now I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Oh my God. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call. Oh, it is really close.
Me back that way.
But now we don't see Chad or Jamie.
It's okay.
No.
Can you hand that to Stephanie? Just a reminder that we gotta add that. You want that as a reminder? No.
I'll
well,
just-
yeah,
I'll
for
just
the-
move it every time
Yeah,
somebody
someone's
speaks.
gonna add it because we need to.
But, yeah.
It's so Kathy can be a signer for the school.
Well, I mean, it's
nutrition
it'll
program.
go over to Randy every time
Instead of
when
Bill.
he starts up. Are you gonna give your presentation up here or are you gonna talk from?
Yeah, I think so, like maybe E
Okay.
under facility.
So when he gets to that, I'll just fade to that side. Remind me if you don't see the camera go over.
Be good?
All right, we're gonna call the regular Board of Education meeting to order at 6:32 on September 11th. Let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have any public comment? I don't actually see any public in the room. Do we have any public comment online? Okay, well then, we have Randy Rumrill, our Director of Facilities, here tonight to present to us. Randy, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Now you're good.
It's on now?
It's on.
Okay, the light, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to the meeting. Glad to attend these meetings anytime that you need my input when in regards to facilities and maintenance issues. So if I could just go over real quick, I'd like to go over what happened over the summer. Some of the projects that we actually did. And we did have some challenges this summer with kind of like insufficient staff members. We had staff take quite a bit of time off. We had other staff, one staff member actually got injured in a motorcycle accident, so he was out for a number of weeks. But we were able to get everything done. When getting everything done, the schools looked really good. Teachers, principals were really happy. Fire inspection went very well. So we passed that, no issues there. So some of the things that we actually had to do and I had to oversee is we had to have Sherwin-Williams come back in to redo the kitchen floor area because they're putting a lacquer on the kitchen floor. They had to redo that over the summer because the product that they put down did not give the results that they wanted. It actually left a film anytime water hit the floor. So they came back and did that. And that was on behalf of Aramark for their, purpose of actually doing the cost to that. I just oversaw it, had the people come in to do it. Kind of arranged, the schedules with them coming in, also with having to do our floors because we had to work around their schedule as well, doing the floors in the schools. So we also had these the smart boards. I know this probably comes up from time to time. We had to brace walls for the smart boards in the elementary school. So there are 4 walls that we had to brace for the smart boards. That way we get them up for when school started. There were some office moves from central office from some of the specialty learning that we had to move over to the elementary school. So that took some time because we actually had to move furniture around. We had to do some painting, put lots of furniture together so these offices could be put in place and be good use. There was a lot of furniture that was ordered for the schools, various tables, bookshelves, chairs. So we had to assemble a lot of that for and work around summer school. So some of it had to be for summer school. So we only had a crunch time of getting the furniture built. Some of the things that we also had to do, obviously, with the way the season was this year, was very wet, hot summer. So the grass grew very quickly. I don't know, my own home, I was mowing my lawn twice a week and doing it here. So we had quite a bit of mowing to do. And with the fact of having some associates that weren't here when we would hope that they would have been here because they took a lot of their vacation time right out of their shoes. We were able to get it done, but it was a little bit of a struggle this year just because of how quickly the grass was growing. The other thing that we were asked to do is to set up the parking lot for designated parking at the Wheeler High, because they wanted to be able to give students the right to park where they pick a number. So that so far as from what I hear has been successful. So we did that for the parking lot. The other thing that actually came up in the summer, we happened to notice when we were doing our walkthrough inspections, we had a glycol leak in the elementary school. Now, luckily, it was down in the boiler room, so it wasn't in any classrooms. Because 2 years ago, we had a we had a glycol leak in one of the classrooms. It was during Christmas break, luckily, but that created quite the mess. So this year, what we had is we had a leak down the boiler room. So we had New England Mechanical come out. They had to actually drain the system of glycol, and we had to replace flanges. We had to do other repairs with seals. So that took a total of 5 days to actually do that work. So it's back up, and everything's working now. The boilers are back in service. Because if we didn't obviously do that, we'd be in trouble when it comes towards heating season, because it was actually starting to corrode the paint on the outside of the boilers as was coming down when the flanges were. So, we had kind of a busy summer, but I will say we got pretty much everything done that had to get done. The staff seemed very happy, especially during summer school. They were pleased with the way it looked, and we worked on some of the teacher schedules because some were on vacation and they asked if they could come at a certain time. We made arrangements. So everyone was happy with the outcome, and it was kind of a busy summer, but we got it done. Any questions?
Randy, are you gonna stay for the whole meeting? I know that there was some feedback you wanted to give on, like that plan that we started talking about, the tri-board with like shifts and capital and.
Yeah, I'm gonna
maintenance
stay for
responsibilities.
I'll stay for the capital part of that,
Okay,
absolutely.
so if you wanna, I guess you could jump
Yeah.
in there maybe when it's
Yeah.
time, but I didn't
Yeah.
wanna make you stay if you didn't
Nope,
want
that's
to.
fine. That's fine.
Does anybody have questions for Randy?
I just had a question regarding mowing. Are we bagging grass clippings as we're mowing the fields?
We don't have the equipment to bag. No.
Would that be helpful? Because I know I've had reports from parents and from other people in terms of like large quantities of grass on the fields affecting the grass that's already there.
Mhm.
And I guess I just wanted to know, is that something we should be addressing at the moment, especially as we're looking to put in irrigation, which is going to increase that level of grass growth, hopefully, as we move forward. I don't want to have things that we're doing now counteract the positive changes that we're looking to make in the fields. So is that, I mean, is it in terms of that, we just don't have a bagger?
We don't have a bagging unit. No, we have 2 rear discharge Hustler 72-inch machines that we do the fields with.
Do they have the ability to have an attached bagger?
That I don't know, but I can find out.
Thanks, Chet. That was kind of on my question too. And how are you feeling about coming off of the spring season and having to do the fields with your team and yourself? Are you feeling You guys are able to stay on top of it? Is it manageable or is it difficult?
I'll say, with what we had this year, because I only have, well, now it's myself and 2 other employees that run those machines. But as for dragging the fields and stuff like that, it's myself and, 1 other person. I think we're maintaining it. I will say I don't really like the way the infields look because there's a lot of grass in it. But when I've talked to people from whether it's Tom Irwin or other schools that are having the same problem, and they said most likely it's a lot because of the rain, because we are nail dragging that. A lot of it is coming up, but not all of it. And usually the fall is when that stuff starts to dry out and die, and then you can nail drag it and pick it up. Yes. Yep.
And like the striping and stuff, you're not having any issues getting all that done before game time and
No,
everything like that?
no, and actually, Joe, the soccer coach, actually, he likes to do that himself. So he comes in early and does that. He wants to be in control. He said, just give me the paint. He said, there's times where I'll have you, you might stripe before a game. I'll reach out to you. So that's fine. But he likes to be in
Okay,
control of that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Randy, you don't have to answer my question now. I don't want to put you on the spot. But sort of along the same lines of what Chet and Christine were talking about, in terms of our fields and some of the other grounds, that years ago and for a long time, we contracted out the fields and stuff like that. Recently, the selectmen decided to put out an RFP to start to look at the rec field. And I think the grass over here at 298, after they did a time study, they realized the amount of time it was taking their staff to mow the grass and maintain the fields, it might not actually be worth it. And it might be smarter to outsource it and use that manpower somewhere else.
Mhm.
Do you think, when I hear you're on a mower, I always get a little nervous because I think like, oh my gosh, the director of facilities, could we be putting the director of facilities, like, are your efforts more useful somewhere else? And it sounds like you're all really busy. So I
Yes.
just wondered if you have an opinion about whether or not we want to explore being a part of that, or if you don't have an opinion right now and you want to reserve the right to have an opinion later, because I'm just
Yeah,
asking that for you.
And I mean, Troy and I have discussed this as well. I would say while school's in session, especially when the grass starts to grow, we have our spring sports, we can maintain it. For summertime, because we have so many other projects going on in the summer, it may be helpful to have a company come and maintain it during the summer. But during school, fall, springtime, we can maintain that. We usually do not have an issue.
The other piece about that, as I look at our capital plan, that I want to make sure that we're factoring in, is the equipment piece.
Mhm.
So if we're not mowing the lawn and maintaining the fields, we don't need to buy that equipment, and we don't need to fix it when it breaks. And so someone comes with a bagger, because I agree with you, Chet, the bagging is something that really needs to be done to maintain the fields. And so I wonder how it all shakes out. Probably if you're going to mow it half the time and then over the summer not do it, it maybe doesn't make sense because
Mhm.
we'd have to have that equipment anyway. But I know that conversation is happening, and I know you and Alan talk all the time as well. So
Mhm.
I'd be interested if to hear from you. I mean, talk to Troy if your opinion about that changes.
Okay.
So, sorry, just continue on the grounds piece of things, because it tends to be the thing that sticks out the most, I think, to the public when they're looking at things. Like, we're hoping for the maintenance of the building to be the ongoing piece. But I know I brought up a few years ago, but we've been through a couple of different directors at this point. The grass area that's in between the 2 playgrounds at the elementary school, that's very little grass and just a whole lot of dirt. And if it's rainy at all, is entirely mud. I guess I would ask that we try and figure out something to create a more usable space there. And I know I don't know what that might be, but I know I brought it up previously when we had contracted people doing the grounds, and then they threw down some grass seed and it didn't take. It's just all dirt. So just for the sake of I mean, we have a beautiful open space there for kids to play on, and it's not really, I just wanted to bring that up.
Alex, did you have something?
Here, two questions. Anything on a facility point of view? Do you have concerns that may not have been highlighted to anybody yet that you're thinking, hey, we may need to spend some money on something that, kinda
Well,
concerned.
obviously a high spend is always going to be HVAC, and you can't really plan for that sometimes because you don't know things break down until it's too late, and it could be a chain reaction with that. But no, there's certain things that, going back to landscaping, there's certain things that I've discussed with Troy. Also that, hey, we're probably gonna have to get a new nail drag to do the infields because we're using one that I think might have been Wayne Coates built,
Mm.
and just they're not high dollar items, but no real issues that I can think of right now.
Okay, because I know with
Yeah.
HVAC, obviously we overspend every year. So I'm just wondering if there's a game plan in your mind that we're going to look at different service company or different maintenance program, or do we buy new boilers, or I'm just kind of, again.
Yeah, well, I will say MCOR, New England Mechanical, they are the best in the area. The company that I was working with before that was set up, if we had an emergency, they couldn't come out right away. New England Mechanical has 3 or 4 guys right in the area. And, the other company sometimes would be in upper state New York. And I was like, well, we got an emergency here, especially that glycol leak that happened. And, it just so happened I had the person that services the glycol units in the bins was in the area. He was able to come to least to kind of assist and help us with that. But, if we had an emergency like that during school, MCOR would be here the same day. So you get that reassurance with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last question, to kind of generalize, how big is your bucket list?
Overflowing. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm just
No.
from a labor, you
Yeah.
keeping up with everybody's requests and. well,
Yeah,
you need
yeah, we
help.
are. There's certain things that, like I know Kristen mentioned, like maybe next year we'll do more painting or something like that. But I mean, we're maintaining the work order system rather well. We're getting back to it, we're putting notes in there, and everyone
Okay.
seems to be pleased with it.
Nice, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much,
You're
Randy. Judy, do you have?
Can I ask a quick
Oh,
question?
of
Sorry.
course, Jamie, I'm sorry.
Back in June, I think I saw a big pile of wood chips. I have to admit that I haven't been to the playground, but I'm assuming that all went to the playground.
That definitely went to
Great.
playground, and we already had the playground inspection. They said it'd take
Awesome.
about 2 or 3 weeks before I get the information back.
Okay, awesome.
Yep,
Thank you so
you
much.
bet.
I appreciate it.
I'd like to just point out that Randy does a great job in supervising his department. And I think I'm not telling you things you haven't heard. I think everybody knows it, and we really appreciate that Randy is here doing the work he's doing. The nail dragger that he mentioned will be on a list that I'll probably bring to you for possible non-lapsing spending. Be about $1,200, and something that I have to meet with Randy and my administrative team and follow the procedure that I'm going to present to you in a little while about that.
All right, thank you. Lisa, do you want to make a motion?
Is it working? Oh,
Yeah,
here it
you're
is. I'd like to make a motion to add an authorized signature change form from the Connecticut State Department of Education to 4E.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
So this is something that Troy just handed to us. We need to put Kathy's name on this because she's the new business manager. All those in favor of adding it to 4E? Opposed? Okay, perfect. So change form.
Yeah, and it's for the food child nutrition program, correct?
Yes.
Yes, Connecticut State Department of Education Bureau of Child Nutrition Programs.
Right.
So at 5:30, the finance committee that we pulled together after our last meeting met for an hour to go over the reports. I just wanted to update you all on a couple of things that we had talked about the last meeting regarding the finance committee. I did speak to Antoinette about minority representation. So it's fine that I'm there and I can satisfy minority representation but I can't be the ex officio member. I just have to be a full member. And it's fine for us to have 4 people. But that's the way that we solve that. So that's that. And Kathy gave us, you all have sort of the monthly report for August. One of the things that Kathy noted that I thought made a lot of sense, in our finance committee thought also made a lot of sense. She told us that when we do finance at the first meeting of the month, she hasn't finished closing out the month before. And so the August stuff that she's giving us will be more accurate if we talked about the August financials at the later August meeting. So if nobody has a big concern about it, our, I guess the later September meeting, I misspoke. If nobody has a concern about it, we'd like to sort of flip our agendas and do the finance meeting as at the second meeting, so that Kathy can be more confident that her numbers are going to accurately reflect the month prior. And does everybody else feel okay about it? The finance committee meeting, the finance committee thought it was fine. Okay. Christine, do you want to sort of read through your list of things that we highlighted that you think might be helpful?
So just to make sure this is working for the whole board, I'll type up everything we talked about so that you guys can have it and read through it. And we record it now as well, because we want to make sure that everybody's still getting all the information. And then we thought we would just, check in every few meetings to make sure it's still working for everybody. And certainly we can change out membership and whatever we need to do to make it work out. We talked about the report, the format, maybe getting rid of the percentage of budgets columns and adding the encumbered column back in and the anticipated column back in. We also talked about getting some information from Troy on the team leads. How much is stipend for those? How is that working in conjunction with what Kim Haggerty is doing now? And if we still need those, and Troy feels pretty strongly that we do, but we just like a little bit more information on those positions. Kim is going to come talk to us. We talked about how she's doing like the vertical alignment pre-K through 12. Top 10 things that Kathy was looking at is the software, and really making sure that we need all of that software and what it's doing and who's using it. Troy's going to work with IT and admin as a collaborative to kind of go through all of that. Alex also requested like any labor changes as the year progresses that were updated to that, to see how that impacts that line item. School Dude did come up as a bill this year, but we aren't using School Dude anymore. So she's taking care of that invoice so that we don't have to pay it. There is a line item in your financial report that talks on the postage, and it looks like it's for the postage meter. It was actually to fill the postage on the meter. So we're good with postage there. I was curious if we had actually bought a postage meter and used up all our postage, but she clarified that. And she's also going to look into the enterprise account at the cafeteria to see what's in there. As we talk about the need to maybe update our food transport. Is there some other way to do it with some of that money that's in there? So we're going to look at that further. And then we also talked about revisiting our policy on possibly using advertising, the boosters, maybe the Ed Foundation for some of the things we need, like the scoreboards and stuff, instead of just paying for them with Board of Ed money. Can we actually get advertisements to do that? And that was kind of, I think, did I miss anything?
Okay.
The only other things that I had was that Kathy identified that the phones are costing more than we anticipated that they would cost, and that's sort of on her watch list. And Alex had suggested that Kathy sort of give us her top 5 to 10 things that are on her watch list that she's worried about now, so she can flag those things for us, so that then we know where we should be paying attention as well. Christine, thank you for the summary.
Can I just ask, just because so the current policy that we have prohibits advertisements on school grounds, or what was you had mentioned the policy aspect, and I don't recall it off the top of my
I
head.
don't recall it either. Troy had just mentioned if you're going to look into that, you might want to see if there is a policy, if not create a policy, because we don't, like I said, we don't want Beefeater's Gin advertising for our scoreboards or,
Yeah, what,
Well, maybe we do. Yeah, if they could have a table on the side.
yeah,
Well,
but-
and we also have to be careful with that one though, because I know, Preston Vineyards was on the fence for us, and we have a variety of vineyards in town that might be looking to assist in those things. Are we okay with that? Is
Right,
that
so
something we want to do?
So it was just a good,
that
if
would
you're
be-
gonna do that, make sure you have policy in place
Right, we-
to
what-
do
all
that.
right.
what brought that up is the soccer scoreboard was donated by Coca-Cola some time ago, and it was free. So we put it up, and, the thought was other schools are doing some advertising. So if we want the scoreboards to be paid for by somebody else that's approved by the board, obviously, that it's an opportunity to, again, to get some benefit from that. So
Well, and
we did
we're
talk about that years ago, but I can't recall how that.
if we're comfortable with those sorts of things, like especially for sports boosters, I mean, our basketball games are sold out over and over again.
Mhm.
The idea that, and I know the volleyball games bring in a lot of there's a lot of people in that building, and if we're able to have the boosters use advertising to get those things for our athletes, I would love to look at that. So I'll look policy wise and see what I can find. And
Thanks. Does anybody have other questions about the financial report or information that you're going to want either today or in the future from the finance subcommittee so that you feel like you're fully connected to these reports? Okay. Yeah. Feel free to, if in a month or two, you're like, yeah, I'm not really getting what I need, please let us know.
I would only echo the idea that the percent of budget, we don't need the percent of budget spent and the percent of budget remaining to add up to 100. We could pull that part off, but
We empowered Kathy to create a report that she felt like was going to just give us what we need, and she didn't have to be stuck in what we had before. Kathy, do you want to add anything? You feel good? Okay. With that being said, I think we're good. Yeah. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Thanks for saying. This moves us on to the non-lapsing account. At our last meeting, I think that we got that unexpected news that our non-lapsing deposit was significantly less than what we thought it was going to be. And then we had some non-lapsing requests and we talked about it. And I think we all just got a little bit nervous about how are we spending this? How are we, when we look ahead, do we know like what's coming down the pike? What's the plan? And everyone just got a little nervous. So Troy met with his administrators to sort of tighten up how requests come in and then how those requests make their way to us so that we are able to say, this is a priority for the school. So Troy, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. We, as an administrative team, have a Google document and I gave you the very rough draft of it last time. I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to give you the draft of it anymore. I'm going to give it to you after it goes through a process and I'm going to explain in a moment. But we, as a team, my administrative team and I are going to continue to use this Google document that has ideas that we all put on it. And so it's my district leadership team, which includes Randy for facilities, includes Greg for IT, includes Kathy for business, and includes my, building administrators. We are gonna use this and we're gonna look at it regularly, and we're gonna first discuss the items on here. And we could request and we'll have numbers on here. If we bring anything to you, we'll have a number on it. That'll be a pretty accurate estimate of what it would cost. And we hope to not bring you a whole list of items, but we're going to discuss and prioritize. We're going to consider the impact on students and staff, the equity between the schools and the departments and staff members in our discussion, and the ability for that item to become a budget item in the budget for like next year and just waiting to get it versus is it a one-time thing that we could really use now? And so those are the kind of discussions we're going to have before I, as superintendent, would bring to you a couple things for you to consider spending your non-lapsing account on. And then you could decide to do it or not. Of course, it's up to you. So I
Thank
would
you.
take any suggestions on that, but we do have a process now. It's really quite simple, 3-step process. that we developed here, and we plan on following that. And in that also, in that consider like, is there another funding source that would be appropriate for this item, whether it's, the Education Foundation or PTO or a grant, that type of thing.
Next question. Are you, so will you be like at the beginning of the year prioritizing based on what the school goals are?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So that
Yeah.
it isn't just,
So-
maybe one teacher's like really excited to get a whole bunch of
yes.
stuff?
Yeah, yes,
or-
actually, I skipped over that. That's part of step one, is that the district leadership team brings a request that are based on district goals to the team. So they have to be able to, anybody who puts it on here has to be able to articulate which goal it's connected to and how. All right, for it to get on the list, or for it to stay on the list and for us to discuss. That's like the first step. If it's not directly connected to a goal, we're probably just gonna say, no, it's not helping us. Yeah, I do have I mean, I have made copies. I don't know if you want them. It's just a simple.
Do you feel like you're in a place to want us to have those now?
Yeah.
You feel like it's good
Yeah,
enough?
that's it.
Okay.
That's it. I mean, we may tweak it a little bit. We may add some details to it as we go, but we just created this today, honestly. So it's, that's what we have.
I think it will help us have more efficient conversations about the purchases if we know that all of these things have happened. So we don't have to say like, well, who gave you this request? And have you asked this person for a request? Additionally, I like that you're gonna sort of think about where else could this be funded? So when it gets to us, you're really saying, I think this is the best place for this to be funded
Right.
out of.
Correct.
So thank you for doing that. I hope that it helps us feel a little better too, about just what are we going to do with that account long term? How are we going to use it? And how are we going to maximize it? Because it won't be big forever, that's for sure. Any other questions about the process?
I'm sorry, I just like keep laboring over it, but a lot of teachers don't know they can ask. And a lot of teachers aren't really aware of like, how's this process going to be communicated to them so that they understand there is a process and that they're going to be able to actually advocate for the things they need.
Yeah, I think it's going to be up to the building administrators to communicate that to their staff about this process.
Okay.
And there are other funding sources, and the reality is the North Stonington Education Foundation sometimes does not get a lot of grant requests, and they're sitting on like something like $35,000, and they want to give that money away, and people aren't requesting. So a lot of those individual teacher requests would probably appropriately fit there. And then, if they don't get the funding, then they could probably, ask their administrator, hey, could you bring this to your team? And we go through this process with it. But I think we also, so the administrators need to let them know, but we don't want everything coming directly. Oh, it can come this direct process. We kick it back and say, hey, go to PTO or go try Education Foundation. But I guess people need to know there are possibilities for funding if they didn't put something in the budget or it got cut out of the budget. There are some other avenues, and I guess we do need to like clarify for that for people so they know.
Well, there are some parameters too for these other funding streams.
are.
For example, the Ed
Right.
Foundation can't fund something that was cut out of a budget.
Okay,
Um,
right,
that's-
that's right.
That's sort of
Right.
in the Ed Foundation bylaws, but Christine, you make a really good point. If a teacher doesn't know, how will they know to ask? And maybe when they're educated about this process, they can also be educated and like a good plug for the Ed Foundation,
Yeah.
right? That there's this opportunity, you could do this. And I think Lisa, you had mentioned PTO and maybe utilizing them to their fullest potential, as well as our music boosters and our athletic boosters. So yeah, we just want to make sure that we're hearing everyone's needs and that everyone's voice is being heard for sure. Thanks, Troy.
Sure.
In terms of the report itself, Kathy had just pointed out to us that there is, if you look at line 31 on your non-lapsing account, it's the roof repair for the bird damage. On the far right-hand side, it says open instead of an X under paid. She was telling us that it's actually not done.
Yeah, that's correct. So what's not done is the deterrent. So it's the speaker strobes. All the wrapping of the installation's all been done.
But we're waiting for that last phase.
Absolutely.
So we haven't paid that yet, so it's not closed out. So that is something that we're still waiting for. And then she updated us that the things that we approved at the last meeting, the rugs, the chairs, and the tumble roll mat have all been ordered, but they haven't been invoiced to us yet. So I haven't signed anything yet. But those things are sort of in process. And as soon as we're invoiced, I'll sign the memo and then the checks will be cut. Right. Then we know that they've been ordered, so we can sort of see it on the sheet.
I guess, I don't mean to really come down on this, but is there any way we could have a column that just says what we approved up to?
I think
Or
that
am
that
I-
is, when we don't do, so do you see the bottom items, expenditures approved by the BOE? So those numbers are the ones that indicate what we've approved. The numbers above that line are the actual
Oh,
costs.
okay. Oh, okay. Okay. So,
So that's why the encumbered would be nice because it'll show
Y-
what we actually, so for
Yeah.
example, if we ordered $720 in primary chairs, but we had approved $750, then we'll know there's.
Yeah.
And then once the
Oh, right,
invoice
yeah.
is done, it'll pop to the
Makes
top.
sense.
yeah,
So
that's okay. That's
This
like-
is what we approved, that
Right.
1250, 750, 800.
Would you
okay.
like that line at the top?
I mean, kind of. So the only, like, for example, like the playground equipment, I just want to kind of keep track of like what we said. We said like up to, and I can't even remember, 70?
70.
Yep.
Right? And then
70,
like,
yeah.
where did we end up? So that we could then see like, oh, look, we actually saved 30,000 and that went back, I guess.
Now that one is broken out. You can sort of see it
Yeah.
in the last 2 years, like broken out to a bunch of individual pieces.
Right.
Do you feel like there has to be like sort of one other place where all of those pieces are totaled up and you can see what the actual?
Yeah, I'd kind of like to know if we see, and that's not, I mean, that's just one specific example, but some of the other ones, I think even for like the wellness day, I think we approved up to something, like, did we spend all of it? Did they need more? Like, just kind of giving us a history of what we said versus what was actually spent. But I agree, I think it's that encumbered line.
Okay. I think Kathy can figure out how to do that. And she seems really
I know,
open
I feel bad
the-
to ask for more, but
us our ask. So, okay, we can ask her.
It might even be less because she's not gonna have to take it off. It's just where we have those expenses when she moves it up, instead of eliminating the line of what we approved, you just add the line of what we actually spent, so it's not. Yeah.
You're right. The information will already be there. Okay. All right. Any other questions about non-lapsing? Okay. Long range capital planning. So Troy gave us a list, a capital draft list. And then, of course, we had that very long conversation at the tri-board about restructuring, how we handle capital. So I think we could do this in one of two ways. Do we want to talk about the capital discussion from the tri-board first, or do we want to talk about the capital list? What makes sense to people?
Yeah, we could decide what we're going to do as capital and what we're going to absorb.
Okay.
Take the list and fit it where it needs to fit.
Okay, so does anyone want to talk about their general thoughts and feelings about the change in, how about we start with the maintenance category? So those documents that we had handed out to us, I think they handed them out at the tri-board and I had emailed them to you in terms of school maintenance, town maintenance. How are people feeling about the way that was divided up on those sheets?
I have to say, I was very excited about what Bob put together there. I think that he, and I get it, it's the same pot of money, and I know we talk about this in all of these pieces, but it felt like he kind of took a bullet there and just said, okay, I'm willing to just say the town is going to do this. And that's so appreciated because I feel like if nothing else, it puts us in a direction. I love the idea of us holding on to grounds. Even if holding on to grounds eventually becomes we enter into an overall contract with the town for all of the fields or something, we can make those decisions moving forward in the future, but they're still within our control. But at the same time, I think that the way that that was broken down, the idea that we don't have to worry about our parking lots anymore as an ongoing expense because we've approved monies for lining and for a variety of things. We had to do emergency monies to do the fire lane. Like there's other things that we've had to do in the past that this just takes off our plate in a way that we don't need to be trying to plan for possibilities. I'm all in favor of the way that he ran down that maintenance piece of things. I don't know that it's the end, but I think that at the moment it's a spectacular place for us to start. And I would love to see us move to that. So
Randy, do you have thoughts about this change in maintenance?
The only one that thought that I had, and I think it might already be on the books to be settled, is just for example, the HVAC repairs, because I'm on site. And if we happen to keep MCOR New and Mechanical, I can call them instead of having to ask Alan, you know, hey, can you
I think
call?
everyone in that
Yeah.
room really understood
Yeah.
that you have to be able to have a direct line to
Correct.
whoever the contractor is.
Right,
You shouldn't have to call 3 people
correct.
to get someone
Right.
to the building.
Yeah.
For sure.
It was just more about the bill, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And about holding one contract to service all of the buildings in
Mhm.
town and not having separate contracts.
Yeah, that was the only thing that really stuck out. Everything else looks good.
Do other people is everybody else?
Can I just ask a quick question to Randy? Do you think having them plow the parking lots will help you a lot too in terms of getting things ready during storms?
Well, they already
They've
plowed.
always
Oh,
done
you
that.
see it.
Yeah.
Okay. never
Yeah,
mind.
it's the sidewalks and the playground areas and the emergency exits, you know, pathways.
Okay.
That's what's not done.
Then my next question then, would it be more helpful for them to help you with that? Do you need help there?
They won't do it.
They won't do it at all. Okay. Okay.
Not in the timely matter that we need it done to open school.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause when we have a storm, it's pretty much all hands on deck. You know, we bring everyone in. So
Any other thoughts about the maintenance piece that we discussed? So if so I want to be able to continue to have this conversation with Bob. I think Alex had sort of said it in our finance meeting before, and Christine was like, I'd like to really see us like move forward. So because
Yes.
every day that we wait, there could be something that happens. So is everybody comfortable with me sort of working with Bob to move this maintenance piece along?
Yes.
I mean, I'm assuming this is going to start in the next budget process. No, we're thinking that they're going to act because that line wasn't set up that way
Yeah.
in this one. So we're moving it along so that when we present budgets
And I
for
think that
next
there
year,
might
these
be
things
some
are changed or
some
we're
things that we want to start working on and like how would that happen and
okay.
and
Accounting for a lot of the HVAC that we had last year. If you look at our budget line, we cut it. And it's smaller than all of the repairs we had last year. So we're already in a spot where we can't afford to do the things that we had to do last year.
Well, if I remember correctly, we cut it because we were having the discussion about the fact that this is going to be moving somewhere other than us.
I'd like to see it go
Yeah.
come into fruition now.
I think that
yeah.
capital committee, Lisa, you sit on that, Bob, Gary Nino, Sarah Nelson. So there's those representatives. I think they're sort of working to move it along too, but I think that no one wants to do anything until all the boards say like, yeah, we're on board with this. So as long as you guys feel like we're on board with that piece, then let's keep pushing it down the road.
I am. Is there anyone who's not?
I feel like the maintenance piece felt very, very sort of simple and easy. So if we shift to the capital piece, so, and I know that the examples resonated with some people about like, look, whiteboards aren't capital. I don't think Bob was necessarily like telling us what was our capital, but rather taking some stuff from our list that we had presented to him last year and saying like, see, you guys would do that. We would do this. So I'd like to focus a little bit more on what Bob thinks the town's responsibility for school capital is first. Does everybody sort of feel like if you look at the town capital, number 5, school buildings, roof, HVAC, structural, boiler, like a large plumbing job. And if you look at our non-lapsing account, we have had to use that account to address some of this stuff. So, and then of course the parking lot. So the idea of creating a new parking lot, maintaining our parking lots, the town would add that to their, I guess, paving schedule.
I think the big part we need to figure out is they really wanted us to kind of split our capital out as a separate line item.
So the idea, and this is where we didn't get to in the tri-board, and I think we should talk about it and maybe be prepared to make suggestions moving forward. When we vote at the referendum, it's our operating budget, right? Where what did we usually question 2 is our operating budget. And then when you're voting on the municipal budget, you vote on their operating budget, their capital, and their debt redemption all in one chunk. So it's just a yes or no. And what Bob and I talked about is his concern that adding too much education capital into that, it doesn't, it just reflects like the town's budget is growing. And he's worried sometimes about adding our capital because it could be a detriment to his budget in general. And so he suggested creating this BOE capital line, not a separate account. It was a little bit confusing about how people's thoughts about how this all works out. It's just a separate line so that we could go to the Board of Finance and say, just like the town goes to the Board of Finance and say, like, here's our capital plan for 2026. These are the things that we want. This is why we want them. We would be able to hopefully, like Alex was discussing before, sort of go through it and provide backup for why the things are important, why we need them. And then the Board of Finance would accept that plan. And then the town would be able to see our capital plan too. But certainly the idea of where we voted on it is a little scary because if we add it into our question, then our budget looks higher. So I think that we probably have to decide what feels most comfortable, but I think Bob's drive behind it was we've got to give you guys a voice directly to the Board of Finance because we don't have that now.
Why couldn't they just put a capital? So the capital plan should be the capital plan, whether it's for the emergency, the ambulance, the school. The selectmen decide, and hopefully they're fair in that and don't say no to the sports van every year. And I think that's what the Board of Finance was saying, be fair about it, realize the school will also have capital, but why couldn't we just have the capital line item be one line item for the entire town?
And separate it out.
Right.
And we could vote on a capital plan.
Right, because
and I think that's possible.
What if the capital plan for the school got voted and approved, but now we didn't get the ambulance that we desperately need because that got shot down? So really, you
give us versus them sort of
right. It should
thing
get,
at voting time.
the town should absolutely know when they go to vote what's in that capital plan. And if school's in it 1 year, great. And if it's just the selectmen will decide what's the priority.
I completely agree, Christine. I think a way to rectify that, to rectify these concerns or to address these concerns is, to have just the one capital line item, but perhaps for budget purposes, for budget time purposes, we wouldn't have separate capital lines for the government operating and the government capital and the school capital, but for the purpose of budget discussions with the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen and us, they'd be considered separately, a separate consideration. So we are not like last year, looking at a fire truck and the sports van right next to each other because we're, the fire, the life-saving equipment, like Gary and Nino had said at the Board of Finance, and then we're like, we really like that sports van. It didn't feel right, even though we need it. So if they can be discussed separately, considered separately, but for the referendum, the capital be a third question. So there's no inflation of the town budget, which is an optic, wouldn't be a good optic for a lot of the taxpayers, and our operating stays the same within reason, not much change, but it's all reflected in that third question. I know years ago, at least for a couple years, we had a third question. We voted on capital separate from the operating budgets. That would
That-
be that would be
That's
my
going to be the sticking
suggestion.
point, right? Is how we vote on that.
Yeah, and with our tri-board, there were so many of us stuck on, there's two accounts. We can't have to, we were stuck there. And so if we're all stuck there and we're in the, we're in these waters, together trying to figure it all out, all these three boards, we can't expect the taxpayers, you know what I'm saying, to whoops.
And there was
You know
that
what I mean?
concern that we can't even do that, separate out the
Right.
school's capital without it actually being part of our budget. So
Right,
putting it all in one makes it the town owns that capital.
right. I completely agree. It should be one line, but I'm wondering if it could be a third question.
All right, so I'm going to ask that question of Bob. I think they determine what the questions are at referendum. I think the selectmen are the ones that move that forward. So I'll ask Bob, and
I think one of the other questions that Sarah had at the tri-board was, can we even have a school capital budget separate on the agenda? I think Sarah was gonna have, or she asked Bob maybe to look into. If we're even allowed to have.
we're going to look into it. It's not our operating budget.
Right.
And I believe it's the operating budget that has that really tight language around it. But of course, everyone would have to feel comfortable with it. So Bob and I were going to look into that. But if as a board, we're feeling like that's palatable for us, then I'll represent that to Bob and likely to Mike Anderson so we can keep this moving forward. And Lisa, please share our feelings at your capital meeting. Does everybody feel good?
I just have one question because I'm still struggling at times with the way that this is actually going to work out. Because in my mind, like I would be fine with the idea that we create a plan for our activities van where we ask for $20,000 over the next 3 years and buy an activities van in 3 years. But I don't feel like, although we're calling this a 5-year plan, I don't feel like that's necessarily the way that that's being handled. And my concern would be if we're going to look at this individually every year and do this as a presentation, then what it turns into is, do we get our $20,000 this year, but then next year we get our $20,000 cut and we're not going to keep building? Because to me, the idea of these capital plans is we can work our way up to the point to save for a big purchase in a way that's capital and not necessarily just say, okay, this year we're going to bump it up by this much. Like, I don't mind doing that. And I don't know if that's possible in the way that we're setting this up.
So capital changed this past budget season, how the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen looked at capital. And you can see that as represented in the 53% increase in capital. And that's because they said, hey, look, we've never really had a plan. And we have to have not just a plan for this year, but we have to have a 20-year plan. Because if we know we're buying this really expensive equipment, we can't just keep saying we're not going to think about it until we need it. We have to really plan for it. And so they've talked about different things, like they talked about bonding, financing, all of that. But oftentimes they do that thing. They did it with the fire truck, the service truck for the fire department. We put away X amount of money, right? If they don't use that money, they have to de-obligate it. So it can't.
So if we, I mean, would that be an option that we can do moving forward though? Can we look at that as part of our plan and say, we would like to ask for $20,000 a year over the next 3 years in
We could do
capital?
that.
And that's going to be something that rolls over for us as a Board of Education within their budget.
Right now, we don't have that voice. So right now, the way it works is that we present just like every other town department. So the highway garage comes and presents the Board of Selectmen and says, these are our capital needs. And then the Board of Selectmen ask a bunch of questions, and then they ultimately hear from every other department, us included. So we're just one of the departments that ask for capital. And then they sit down and they say like, okay, so I can't buy them a truck now, but maybe we could do $20,000 here. So they decide how that rolls out. And so that's why Bob was saying, perhaps you need a voice that's equal to our voice with the Board of Finance, saying, this is the capital plan, this is the vision for the school, rather than we stand in line with all of the other departments and then somebody else decides, do we? I think it just gives us a direct voice to the Board of Finance.
And I guess my only question would be, because I know we brought this up at one of the previous meetings, is the idea of we can use our non-lapsing account to be able to roll money over and have that work. Is there a way that we could create a situation where the Board of Finance is comfortable with us saying, we're going to put our capital directly into our operating budget, but we're going to put it in earmarked so that it would roll over as a, because we can put a capital line item, roll it in and
Right.
say, in 3 years, we're going to take what was rolled into our, and I know it comes across as sounding like we're padding, but it's not padding because it's a plan.
I don't think, that will ever, and it's simply not the way that the capital plan works. So it doesn't go into the selectmen's operating budget. It's a capital plan. And like I said,
But I
they
mean,
have
like
to
right now we're
be
handling capital expenditures for us out of non-lapsing.
agreed, because our.
So this would
our
just be
needs-
setting it up so that
Our
would
needs
work.
aren't necessarily being considered equally
Can you explain the deobligation again? Does that happen annually if it's not used?
if it's not used. Like, so for example, say they decide we're taking this off the capital plan. We're no longer purchasing this service truck because they're going to purchase something different. They can't just take that money and like apply it to something else.
So it would go
because-
back to the general fund.
Yes.
So what if, and I don't know if we can do this, but what if we looked at our 5-year and our 10-year and said, okay, on an average, that's $25,000 a year, like to Chet's point, but maybe in year 1 and year 2, we're saving it for the big purchase we need in year 3. Can they deobligate it and earmark it in the general plan so that we're able to pay that in the 3rd year? Does that
mean, we
make sense?
could-
Like saving it?
Well, and that's what I'm trying
We
to
could
figure
talk
out is
about it.
how we can do that, because that to me seemed
Right.
like.
But that's
the
what Bob's
correct way to
saying.
do
That's
it.
what Bob was trying to give us the opportunity to do.
But if we have to deobligate it out of that budget, then it's not giving us the
Right, or
opportunity.
we have to spend it on the thing and maybe we don't have enough for the thing.
I think maybe I'm not explaining myself. Right now, we don't have the opportunity to say, this is how we want it structured. We just say, this is what we need. And then we go sit down and somebody else figures it out for us. Bob is saying, we think that you should have your own capital plan and that you as a board should decide A, what your priorities are, B, when those things need to be purchased. And then we also have this weird thing that they don't have, which is the non-lapsing account. So maybe we look at some of this and say, we're not putting this into our capital plan. We could pay for this year at a non-lapsing and take it off. So we have that thing. So once we run it through all of that, we make a plan and then we bring the plan forward to the Board of Finance. And we would say, we want to present this as our education plan. Now they may say, great. And we'll likely have to have suggestions like, we think we could wait and purchase this in year 3. Could you consider earmarking that money for us? But we can't just say, save it for capital. My understanding is that we would have to say that that money is attached to the school meals transport vehicle. And on year 3, school meals transport vehicle is purchased, that we couldn't just say capital.
Okay, so it's
That should be
it's
specific.
obligated money, so it doesn't have to be deobligated every year.
Not at the end of the year if it's going to be spent, but if for whatever reason, the school meals transport vehicle.
Okay, it's not if it's not going to be
falls
spent
off.
that year.
Right.
It's just if it's going to, okay,
They
that
can't
was,
just
that was,
take
that
that-
was the difference I was missing.
Right, they just can't
Okay.
take that and apply it to the fire truck, because we had this pot of money. So I think that we just have to decide what works best for us and then say, this is what we're comfortable with. So what do we think we're comfortable with?
I'm fine with a question 3. If the idea of trying to work it through a non-lapsing is not something that's amenable to people, so I think that it would be an easy way to do it. I'm fine with a 3rd question. I don't think I want it separated out on a ballot where we say Board of Ed capital is a separate thing. I feel like that would not go well. I think that putting it into a major capital setup but having it presented separately sounds great.
So I can ask if there's an appetite with the other boards to do that. And we still can use, don't forget, we can still use that non-lapsing account for whatever we want. But right, we have to think about it, I guess.
Well,
in
again,
terms
that's
of-
why my plan is the idea, like I was thinking we could plan ahead in that process and have that be the way.
It's like almost say, okay, this is how much
Even if we did it as a
start
memorandum of
saving for
understanding
it.
where we said, like came to some agreement. I don't know, but
I don't imagine that will be accepted.
Well, we cannot use the non-lapsing account for that because we can't have.
We can
it's
only,
like we can't use it as a savings
And-
account. We can't have a line item that's just gonna be in there. It's strictly only for money that's unspent.
the only way to deposit into the non-lapsing account is through our operating budget at the end of the year. So we can't have other streams of deposit into that account. So like the town couldn't say, we award you $25,000 out of the undesignated fund to your non-lapsing account to save for capital. We can only accept through our operating budget.
But that being said, if we plan for it the year and it just stays earmarked into the not undesignated account, it's kind of the same thing.
Right.
Just this is
Except that we made that huge move to eliminate that sort of stuff from our budget, right? So that we weren't making capital expenditures from our operating budget, just like the town doesn't. The town doesn't make capital expenditures from their operating budget. They make it under their
but at the
capital
same
plan.
time, we're being told that we're not going to ever be given any of our capital.
But I think that that's why Bob said, I want to give you a voice where you're going to be. I want to help make the process so that you have a voice because you should.
I
Can
think
we
this is a
present
great
2
start.
options? Could we present what our absolute, like, let's say again, the
Sure.
sports van is a need. Let's say we determine that's our big capital need this year. Could we say our 2 options are, we'd like to purchase this van this year. We have the need now. We'll show our case. If that's not the case, is it possible to save for it over the next 3 years?
Yeah, I think the
And then
Board of
they can-
Finance
they
sees that
can
as one and the
choose
same.
Which one they like
Sure.
better.
That's a great idea.
Okay. All right, so I will touch base as long as we're feeling like we like the splitting of the capital. And the only idea that we're trying to figure out is how does that capital get presented both to the other boards and then to the town in a referendum?
Well, we don't want to split. We still want it as part of their capital line item. We don't want our own.
No, I mean the capital expenses. So like we're no longer gonna have to worry about paving a parking lot.
Right.
We
right.
want them to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
And sooner than later.
I'll make sure Bob knows that you want that part.
I
of
want
it
this
soon.
done by
September
1. Yeah.
So actually, I think this discussion went way better than, and way more like we're on the same page than I thought we might be. So that's super exciting. If we look at now shifting to Troy's actual capital plan, we'll look at this again at our retreat on the 28th, but I think we should probably ask questions about it now so that we can be really narrowing it down and being ready to make decisions about it. Thoughts,
It-
questions?
But before we have questions, I wouldn't mind if we gave Randy a chance to comment on some of these
Oh,
items.
yeah,
Because
Randy,
it might
comment.
prevent some questions. It might answer questions before they're asked.
Sure.
Randy, do you have comments on fiscal year 26 items?
The school meals transport vehicle.
Yeah,
Right.
I
Just
mean,
comment on that a little bit.
yeah, that's one, we have to get that done. That vehicle we're having issues with it quite often. And we hear about it from Airmark, it doesn't start again. Why does it keep draining batteries? It smokes when it goes across the back of the school sometimes. But yeah, we really got to do that one. Yeah,
I heard
but
that it's being serviced a lot.
It
that
is,
It's not
it
an
is.
easy vehicle for you guys
correct,
to run.
correct. Yeah. So we definitely need to do something with that.
What do you think we replace it with? Like, what's your, I mean, you know what goes in it and how
To-
it's
to
structured.
be honest with you, what I think it should almost be like what we have for like a cargo van. That's what we're going to be asking for when it comes time for our facilities maintenance van to be done. Just an open cargo van. Less money, it's open. You can stack as much stuff as you need to in there, I would think that would be the best bet.
And you think we could buy a used one, given that we're just driving how many miles a week, a month?
Well, we we could buy a used one, but the price of used vehicles right now pertain to a newer vehicle. When it comes to a cargo van, you're looking at $51,000, and maybe to get a used one in the 30s, is it going to be worth that? That's something to consider and think about. But the other items as far as the year 26, like the baseball, so we already talked about that, the scoreboards. That's really, I have to comment on that first group of the 26. Now as far as for year 27, that top one, storage unit or some type, would it be possible to actually just get another storage container like we have for the price? Because that can last a number of years, as opposed to building something where we have to actually put concrete down, space, go through plans and zoning. If we just get another container, that would help out. Now we don't have to worry about that right away, and that can even be pushed down for even future.
Can you talk a little bit about what needs aren't being met with our current storage options that this maintenance shed would solve?
Right now we actually have to take like seasonal equipment and drive them down to the bus lot, 'cause there are 2 old storage containers down there now that are not in good shape. I guess they were from the construction project. And right now we have majority of our snow plow equipment's in there, like, the snow blowers, the gator with the salter on it. If we had another one up here, we would be less traveling on it, it'd be easier to do. Right now, mice are getting in there, and we had chewed up wiring for the harness, so we had to get things repaired. It would just make things a lot easier. Everything's right there. We wouldn't have to do all this switching around each season.
Okay.
And if we get the other nail drag, that is a unit that's either we can put it in the storage container or put it between them. If we, just have like a roof between both storage units, we could station it there instead of being out in the full elements. Because that's one of the problems with the Kubota, right? Is, it's an older Kubota. The floor is rotten on it. It leaks. It doesn't always start. It gets water in. This past spring, it actually got water right in the gas line because it's out in the elements.
Okay.
Talk about the Kubota just a little bit, in terms of the need for a Kubota plow tractor
Yes.
and the cost of this.
Yep. So I went down to there's a tractor, I don't know the name of it, but it's a Tractor Supply company that sells Kubotas right on 184 near Stuckey's gas station. I went and saw them, and a compatible Kubota or type of plow unit that we have now, they're anywhere between $83,000 and $91,000. They're very expensive. But one that we have, like I said, is in really rough shape, and we need that when we do any type of snowstorm, because that's what does all the sidewalks along the property, does the playground area, does like the higher areas, depending on what the snowstorm is, but it does all the access or exit egress around all the school buildings. We also have to plow up to the pump house in case it was a fire emergency and the fire department has to get there. So with the Kubota, that's what actually does majority of the work, and we have a significant snowstorm. Now we do have 4 snow blowers, but I will tell you, this past season we couldn't use them because it was such a heavy wet snow. The snow blowers didn't work. If we had that, that's what it's going to take to maintain any type of snow services.
Randy, is that Kubota primarily used for plowing or does it have other things that you do with it? in
Yeah,
the
we
springtime?
do. Like if we have to move, say like certain soccer goals, we can hook up chains to that. We've had to move it. We've had to move bleachers. Like we have some bleachers that are on skids that we have to move around. We use that for it. When we had to expand the playground area to be in code, we had to use it to dig to actually, put all the new pavement down. We do use it when we have to spread mulch, when we spread wood chip mix in the playground. And also we use it with the sports fields when we had to do the first infield leveling. We had to use it. We had to put the rake on the back of it.
They move stones as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. When we do have to move stones.
That's helpful info. Last year, that same, I don't know if it's the same, it was that title, the Kubota plow tractor appeared on the capital plan, I think in the same year, like a few years down.
Mhm.
And when it appeared on that capital plan, it was estimated at 52,000. And now to replace it, it's estimated at 93,000. Are you looking at like, is it some sort of a different model with different capabilities?
No, so that was last year. We kind of did a guesstimate of what we think that they would cost. But prices have gone up in them. What's compatible to what we have now would be the one that's between 81 and $93,000.
So then my only question, and again, you're the facilities guy, not Stephanie, is that $93,000 for something that primarily plows and then like moves around some stuff in the spring. And that makes a lot of sense. And I get, you got to be able to put a rake on it.
Mm.
Does it make sense if you were to get, instead of replacing one gator, get two gators, get plows on both the gators that you can take off in the spring? Because I imagine you can use those gators for a lot of moving things around as well. But then does that make you more efficient if you've got two gators plowing sidewalks and entryways? And then can you get sort of a less expensive, more basic tractor to do those things like raking? Does that, and perhaps even a used one instead of a new one? And I know that if you just went down the street, you're really looking at MSRP prices and maybe
Mhm.
not what we can actually
Right.
achieve here, but any thought to sort of restructuring what that equipment looks like rather than just replacing what we have?
We could look into getting like some different type of equipment and putting plow attachments on it. It'd probably have to be something different than a gator because, gator's capacity, if it was a big heavy storm, might not be able to do that. But that's something I can look into. Absolutely.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there other things that you want to comment on this capital list?
No, just like, obviously year 29, it's the maintenance van. The one that we have now is a 2013. So that will need to be replaced probably within the next, 4 or 5 years. The other item is actually, one thing I wanted to discuss was the flooring over at the high school. There's room 147, and I noticed this last year. The very corner of that room is where kind of like the wall is between the elementary school and the high school, where the pump house is. It's in the very corner. That's settling. So right where the footing is, it's breaking apart. So that could be a costly repair, because, they probably have to either re-level part of the floor or fill that in. I will say that there are some settling. I'm keeping an eye on it because I know when I mow, there's certain areas I used to be able to mow straight and now I can't because the ground's doing this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is it safe to wait until fiscal year 30 to talk about that?
We have to keep looking at it. We have to keep monitoring it.
Okay. I think that if we
Correct.
were to look at the way that the town is looking to structure it, we would send that to their list.
Yeah.
We should probably look at this list. Mark out what those things are, take them off the Troy's list right away
Yeah,
in the priority.
Yeah.
yeah. Does anybody else have questions for Randy?
That's the same question before. Is there any way to take advantage of the cafeteria, not getting a van and extending capabilities in the high school?
The high school? Not really, because I know one of the things that they were looking at is possibly even having like a healthy option, like salad bars.
Mhm.
But the footprint that's in the high school, you know, we might be able to get like movable, like kind of coolers. But there's not much we can do as far as cooking goes. There's not a lot of room in there.
So if you got that big tractor, could you pull a food cart or food? Well,
We could.
no, it's, you can get environmentally controlled, whatever,
Yeah.
things, if get some
Yeah.
use out of it rather than another vehicle that you have to maintain.
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Oh, well,
Make a covered walkway that's, I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, I know.
I'm just
But,
thinking of.
yeah, no, it,
Hate to spend a lot of money for something that just travels 50 or 100 yards or whatever twice a day.
right. And what they're loading, obviously, they're loading trays of food, waters, you know, milk, sodas. Um, uh, you know, so it's something they do every day, because obviously they do the cooking over at the elementary school.
Mm.
But you know, that it's, we're hearing it more and more from that team that, you know, they're kind of frustrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions?
What is this LED sign? I don't remember, like, we have the LED sign out over here. Is this another outdoor one or is this inside
Yes.
of the school?
It's another outdoor one. The idea is to replace or just add another one, possibly on the school side of the road, pretty much right across from the existing one. The existing one is older. There's only one computer, old computer that can have the software on it to run it and change it, and it's in the technology office. So only anybody that changes a sign has to do it from that computer. So it's become very inefficient that way. And there are, you know, more modern type signs.
We need that though. I mean, really? I mean, I know it's nice to drive by and see the blurb of information, but is that really where people are getting information, do you think? Or
I don't know. We've had some discussions, and again, this was, you know, a lot of the discussions happen in a brainstorm kind of way.
Right.
like, And I know there are some thoughts that a more upgraded sign that is on the school side could actually be more informative of school events that's going on, more like celebratory messages, and it just may be great for school spirit. You know, so it could become a good communication tool as people drive by or pull in even to the parking lot. That's the idea.
okay.
Yeah, that was one of the things brought up, because think of how many parents go in that entrance, and right there, if there's a sign right there, yeah, I mean, you know, they can see it. So
Right. Right. What would be the plan for this one?
The one that exists currently. Well, we don't know for sure. We actually were talking about it today. It could be that, the town uses it specifically for messages that they want to put up. It could be that we take it down and we just go with the new one. I mean, there's been no decisions about what happens with that one. I'm just giving you two possibilities that were mentioned.
Is it $70,000 really how much it costs?
That's an estimate. That's a quick Google search. And again, we would have to provide soon more backup to support these estimates. But that's just a quick kind of idea in the range of. You could spend more, you could probably spend a little less, depending on the quality, exactly what you want. And how personalized it is. You know, I mean, you can get a generic one that doesn't have, like, you know, North Stonington on the top of it in the frame, you know, and you pay less.
I guess I would just say $70,000 seems like a really big spend for the communication aspect of things, especially just knowing that no matter how much communication we put out, there's still going to be people saying that they didn't know about the things that were happening. I don't know. If the number's really 70,000, I would not
think that-
really. That's an activities van. We could get a second activities. No, no, but it seems like a really big spend for a sign. And
And that's why it's a draft, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Well, and I that's why I just
Yeah.
want to make my opinion known on it,
And I
on the draft
I
version.
agree. I'm kind of like, can we take that off the list is what I'd like at this point anyway, just with all the other needs we have. Do you think your team would be
If they,
upset about that or?
I think there is some passion about a new sign.
Mhm.
But I think, you know, they would probably, if they got something else instead, like a sports van or something else that they have passion about, I think they'd probably be okay. Because like you say, you can't, you guys, I mean, this is your list, right, with input. And yes, they would like it all, right?
We would too.
We would.
Yeah, and what I can do though is, what I haven't done yet is that column about priority rank,
Priority rank.
right? And I could do that for you and not take anything off the list yet
Okay.
and do the priority rank. So then maybe after that, then you could take things off the list.
I love the priority rank idea.
Troy, do you remember, or Randy, do you remember how much that storage unit cost that we did for you?
Yeah.
Okay. So that might even be.
With the sign, if that was a quick Google search, I mean, it's very possible that you could find one for 30, you know, we don't know that, you know?
Maybe.
So I wouldn't be
Right,
so
maybe.
quick to take it off the list before you do, you know,
Right.
before some more research is done.
Well, and
you
30 I would be totally game to talk about. 70 just seems like a
Yeah,
huge
obviously
number.
Just throwing a number out there.
Has anyone contacted the PTO? They donated this sign.
We paid for, I was on the PTO at that time. We paid for half the sign, and I'm not sure who paid for the other half. It may have been the Education Foundation. It may have been, I don't remember.
I don't
Um,
know. We'd have to go
But we
back
did
and
pay
look.
for half the sign, so I would like to, if there is another sign, I'd like to see that sign utilized in some way rather than taken down.
Give us money for the school meals transport?
Possibly, we can look into that and see, but it is to be used, like if we wanted to buy a salad bar, a mobile salad bar, like you could use it for that. Or to buy a new freezer, you know, that kind of thing. So a transport van, I think would probably work. I'll look into it.
Don't talk.
Can you clarify that account again? I'm sorry.
The enterprise account is, it's a food service account where if they are in the black one year, they make money one year, it goes into this enterprise fund, which is to be used to upgrade the cafeteria services and you know, buy new equipment, that type of thing. And I think there is a balance, and Kathy was going to check to see
Yeah.
what that balance
I feel like
is.
it was a pretty substantial one.
It was, and I think we purchased some items from it, so I don't know where it stands now,
Okay.
but we'll get the balance for
Okay,
you.
cool. Thank you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Randy? So if we want to talk about other items on this list that maybe he doesn't necessarily want to say to talk about, I just want to be mindful of the time and the fact that he's here at 8:00. Any other questions for Randy?
No, but I would just say that, you know, whatever you think your tractor lawnmower needs are, is what we want to hear about, because it's very hard for us to sit here and say, well, could you think of this? And I appreciate where you're coming from with that stuff, but you know better than anyone else what your needs are on your facilities and what's going to serve your needs the best. And that's absolutely what we want to hear about.
And I think in order to get this advanced any further, I need you to be able to articulate exactly why that's your tractor. And so in providing other ways to think about it, I want you to be able to talk in that language, because what I can assure you is that there was reaction to $52,000 last year, $93,000. People are going to lose their mind. And so I need you to be able to say, well, this is why this tractor is the only model for me. And I've looked at these other iterations of groundskeeping, and that just that's not going to work for our needs. So if you can do that, then that makes it so we could do that. And then it's not, you know, going to crash. Thank you. Okay, so do we have other things on this capital list that we want to talk about prior to sort of saying we'll visit it again at our So I think they're probably only going to be interested in seeing this first 5 years from us right now. So we would be talking about,
There's 2 floor spots, right? We have gym floor and
Agreed.
So that,
Yep.
yeah, well, because it's gonna cost about $30,000, so it's over $10,000 and will last for more than 5 years. That's, if it's that definition, that's why.
Yeah.
But it's also, it's not just a regular, do a light sanding and put a new top coat on it. This is a deep sanding, including removing the lines, redoing the lines, and then putting the coats of, the coating on it. So that it is, yeah. So is maintenance of the gym floor.
Yeah.
But on an annual basis, we do a light.
Right.
Like every
resurfacing.
summer you do
Yeah.
that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a deep resurfacing. And then if you notice, like further down the list, way in fiscal year 3742, I have that gym floor resurface again at Wheeler, the deep surface, including lines, because you want to do that every so many years. And what's that, like 10, 15 year, more 15 years difference maybe there. And then right underneath it, notice a gym floor replacement elementary school. That's a rubber or vinyl floor, which has a lifespan of 15 to 20 years typically. And you may have to replace it in, this, we're talking like over 15 years from now, we may have to replace that.
Right.
So maybe we want to kind of plan.
It makes a lot of sense that it's there. Thank you for putting it there.
Do you happen to know how many times we can resurface that gym floor before it's to replace the gym floor?
I don't know that, but there is a cost for replacing wooden gym floors. They can last like 50 years or more until you have to like replace all the boards.
I just know that
Depending on what
when you
happens.
sand things, you only have so
So,
many sandings that
Yeah,
you
I
get to go
don't
deep
know.
on. I
That's
just
a
was
good
wondering.
question, but I don't know how many like deep sandings you can do.
And I'm sure that's the original floor when they built that gym. So you're
It's
talking
like in
early
mid-
nineties,
Mid-90s, yeah.
early to mid nineties. So you're
30
getting
years.
closer to that
So, yeah.
replacement potentially than deep sand in those later years of this plan.
So it might be, it's a floor replacement in fiscal year 50,
Right.
I will not be the superintendent.
Are we going to be on the board of ed? Okay. Other things that we want Troy to look into before we sort of, this crystallizes for us at the end of September?
I guess I would just say the outdoor scoreboards piece of things, right? Like give us some time to check out policy and decide what we want to do on that, because that might be something that can hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe pull off, right?
And then my only other one would be to really see what our IT plan is, because it is quite possible servers and all of that just does fall in our operating budget as we have IT needs. Maybe one year we're replacing Chromebooks and everything else, but if it's a server year, maybe we're not. So
Yep.
that really probably could be a line item in our budget that stays consistent and is always used for IT.
Right. Troy, I had a question about why we just put in wiring and cameras. Why are they included in 26?
All right, so basically, I talked to Greg about this and he kind of said, okay, what have you spent over the last 10 years on these types of things, on average, and he said like in 10 years, probably, or 20 years, $1 million, say. So we divided, we said that's about $50,000 a year. And we just kind of said, well, what are those things that we'd consider infrastructure? This is the list we came up with. And in the interactive whiteboards, I agree. Like, I know initially we were saying, because I think I had it at a list last year, all of it at one time and say it's a big
Yes.
purchase. So maybe that would be capital. But I do agree, like probably realistically, we're going to be replacing a handful each year. So I think it does make sense to take this IT infrastructure budget of 50,000 and put it in the budget every year. And we just, some years, maybe we're not replacing any whiteboards because we have to replace a server or have to
Yeah.
buy a few more cameras. But if we can kind of know that we're going to have to budget about 50,000 each year to take care of these types of things, somewhat unpredictable because you don't know a camera is gonna die. and you
Right,
gotta
but he
replace
will
it,
know when he puts his budget together each year exactly what that line item will look like.
he should have a good idea.
But I'm leaning towards taking IT out of
I
capital.
think it feels less capital and more like it's our operating budget.
And I'm totally fine with that. I agree with that. So I could take that right off the list. So next time you see the list, that doesn't have to be on there. I
Okay.
won't even prioritize it. I'm taking it right off. Yeah, I think that's good.
And then are there any other things that comments, concerns, or questions we want Troy to have answered and ready for our conversation on the 28th when we meet?
You're getting better prices for all of these things once they're in or before, like a gator cart for 12 grand would be a miracle to find.
Agreed, but that's not till fiscal year 29. So we're not that worried about it for this year's plan.
Oh, and it's gonna get cheaper by then. You're right.
But if you can find a $12,000 one, I think we're all really excited.
Yeah, well, I think we do for the first few years of the plan, whatever ends up being in the first years of the plan and with your input and with considering the priority rank that I'll bring you next time. I think that, I mean, we have to start now, like getting the backup for some of these estimates. But when you actually decide what the plan is, if we have any holes or gaps in the backup, we got to make sure we get it because the town's going to want that handed in with
Yes.
the list.
I'm a little worried about the school meals transport vehicle. Is there a way to get that this year? It concerns me that it doesn't start sometimes. What happens when
Yeah.
it doesn't start?
You-
Do they just carry food over?
Well, they had to replace the battery.
Just been maintaining it to so they'll I mean, I think it takes Randy's guys, they have to respond to it and
Yeah.
do all sorts of things to get it started. But my understanding and
They've been able to get it started.
right, we've never not
With work,
So
had
it's
to
not
be able to-
detrimental
with a lot of
right now?
attention, they've been able to get it to work. So, I mean, they could probably limp through for another year until fiscal year 26, till next year, and then replace it then. Or
Is there a
we
backup
could get it
plan?
this year if you want to spend your non-lapsing account on it.
But is there a backup plan if it doesn't start?
The Board of Ed will volunteer to carry meals from one school to the other.
I'm sorry, your mic was not on.
Oh,
I
oh,
didn't
sorry.
hear that.
Let me speak louder.
Okay, well, Troy, thank you
I don't know
so
the backup
much.
plan. You volunteer for everything, Judy. Yeah, that's. Don't be.
Okay, so we are gonna move on to Lisa's motion,
That's right.
which
You're good.
is
Right.
the
Good idea.
Bureau of Child Nutrition Programs authorized signatures change form. Troy, do you want to explain to us?
I
Yeah.
was just gonna go ahead and make a motion.
Yeah, just-
I make a motion to
motion.
approve adding Kathy to the authorized signature change form for our healthy, nutritious meals for kids thing.
I'll
Second.
it.
Do we want to have any discussion about it?
No.
No.
Okay, we've done this before.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor of asking, inviting Kathy to sign and be authorized, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed.
Could you pass that down? Because
Yeah.
the secretary has to sign it.
Jamie, this is a job for
Here's a
you.
Special pen?
It's official action.
Take out your
Yeah.
pen.
It's right. Make sure that's your name, right? So they go sign right here.
That's mispractices.
No way.
It's okay. Doesn't matter.
We actually fixed it once too. Okay.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Troy. Okay, moving on quickly to old business. We discussed a while back a state of the school district to do in the fall, not during budget season, as an opportunity to connect not just with the parents and school population, but how do we involve the community and have the community be invested in our school when we're not immediately then asking them to support a budget. So it's something that we've done in the past. It worked really well. I'd really like to do it again. I'd like to do it in October. And I'd like to suggest, if it's okay with everyone, that perhaps we ask Bob if the Board of Selectmen want to join us, and maybe even Mike Anderson, and let's make it a state of the town. And we can all highlight the great things that we're doing. And maybe if we make it a state of the town, we pull in a wider audience. But maybe we host it so people can see our facilities. Any thoughts?
Is it going to be a meeting where we stand up and talk to the people and they have to sit and listen for 2.5 hours? Because that sounds so boring.
Well, I think that there are some people that would like to hear what's happening. And I think that a year and a half ago, I attended a webinar on communication plans in districts. And we sort of always get to this place of budget season. We say like, oh my God, we have to communicate with people. And the biggest takeaway I had from that was you have to engage your community, not during budget season.
No, I get
They
that,
have
but
to be.
I'm more about
attached.
the format.
I
Can we
think-
do tables? Can we do it like I don't.
I think that we could
festival,
do
so I just.
whatever
Or
we
or
want.
can
Us
we
talking
have a new video tech teacher who could we maybe talk to our video tech department at the school and have something be put together as a video so people can, it goes up on the town site with the YouTube stuff, and what we get is, you know, hey, not only is this the state of our district, but our students are putting this together, editing it and creating something that's maybe flashier and a little bit more fun for people to watch.
I think that's super fun. I think it's all about what Troy thinks the bandwidth of his staff is. The other thing, it dawned on me, I was at the, you know, the garden sale that the garden club does in May. And someone behind me said, I've never even been in these buildings. And I thought, well, how could you not have ever been in these buildings? And she didn't have kids in the school. And so maybe if we're hosting it, we could have, I love the idea of tables because maybe there are other things that we want to talk about. I think there has to be some sort of format where Troy can have the opportunity to highlight some things about the school that's so great. And I think it would be a great opportunity for Bob or maybe Mike Anderson to talk about this capital plan and how they've taken something on that's long range planning that's never happened before. And people can be really comfortable that like we're getting what we need in the most responsible planned out way. I think that's great. I would love a video. It would be amazing. I mean, I don't know, Troy, about that, but
It's a
So
good
it's
idea.
a good idea,
Check.
but let's
People
talk
on
about
board
the
with it?
format. And
so I want to do it at the end of October.
that's
October,
the date. That's not the
So
format.
so I think in terms of when we want to talk about the format, if you could keep that in mind, I think we've got to do it before the holiday rush. And once the holiday rush is over, we're in January and we're doing budget.
Mhm.
The end of October is super busy.
Yeah.
There's Fall Fest for the PTO, there's Frights and Lights, like.
Yeah.
I don't know that there will be a month that's not busy. And so I was thinking a Monday nights, we don't, so the 2 dates that I picked were not taken by other boards and commissions. And that, it may be, Jamie, that it doesn't fit for everyone, but maybe it's the people that aren't, maybe the people we need to be talking to aren't the people that are necessarily going to PTO Fall Fest.
No, that's true. But what about like November, like between, like after election, but before Thanksgiving? It's
I
kind of-
was thinking you tie it in like with, you have the report cards or parent teacher conferences or something where, I don't know.
That's the
it's
7th and
already
8th.
open, so.
November.
Which day?
7th and 8th of November are parent conferences. There's
Do-
Thursday, Friday.
I think that that's really close to the election.
It's
Oh,
after
it is.
the
It's a
election.
couple days
Right.
after.
I know, I'm not sure that that's,
I love the idea of the end of October, perhaps even Monday, October 28th.
28th.
that was.
You got me
21st.
thinking, Jamie, when you said how busy October was, Fall Fest
I'm
lights
available.
and all that
Mhm.
stuff. We could have flyers or advertise, there that this is coming up. So that would just be an opportunity to advertise the state of the school district. I think a video is a great idea. It's a great little piece to have, to engage people. It'll be fun to watch because anything that comes from Wheeler is really high quality. But in addition to that, I think it is really important to have a presentation from the town and the school, and it doesn't have to be boring, but there could be an opportunity for questions and like tables, maybe different subjects after the presentation, because there could be different facets of what's going on in the town or what's going on in the school that would be of particular interest to different people. And so if there were, the table set up, like you had said, we could just have, I don't know, just a few different topics that people could go to for a more focused conversation on that. I think it could be really exciting and,
I
and a
think,
lot of fun.
didn't we have a state of the district in this room where we didn't have big attendance? So I don't, how are you gonna get people to
We
want to
did-
come out?
Did we do it it was the old gym, right?
that
Wasn't
was-
that the last one?
Yeah, but that was because we were trying to keep.
Right, right. So, but after that, I think we've.
Oh, no, that was the one over there. I mean, in our old gym over here, I think was the last. Yeah.
We had stayed in the district over here, but it was around the same.
Right, where we were trying to save
It
the
was
school.
pretty well attended and we had snacks, I think.
Well, snacks is important.
Yeah.
Right, but
Yeah.
that's a challenge, is how you're gonna get enough people if you're gonna have all these tables
sure.
and all that,
I think that's why perhaps broadening it to not just be about us, but rather, because the parents know what's happening at school. They know.
Could we have a table at Fall Fest or something?
And I have just one other thought, if we want to do this and have like a loose format decided. The North Stonington Quarterly is coming out in the first week of October, and, we could put even on the back cover. No, that would be the election on the back cover, but, somewhere prominent on there, maybe even the front cover underneath the selectmen's article about the town and state district. It would be important, and it would be on the front page. Nobody even has to open up the quarterly to see that. Is a thought. That would be a good way of getting people out, and you don't even have to have it completely planned to put it out there.
So Jamie had something she was gonna say.
I'm worried about oversaturation. I understand that like not everybody's going to the PTO, but there are town events that maybe you could utilize. I think you should utilize like Frights and Lights and things like that to kind of advertise this. But I just worry about oversaturating. Like there's so much going on in that time.
Yeah. And I think depending on who sort of like what phase you're at in your life, different times of year, right? Like, I mean, Frights and Lights certainly like highly attended by the town. Like I'm not sure that there's ever going to be that perfect time, and it's not going to be, I don't anticipate it being anything like the PTO Fall Fest or Frights. It really is just, it's a glorified meeting, right? Like a Monday night meeting where people who are interested in hearing about things that are happening in their town can hear about that at a time that's not associated with a budget ask. I think people are in a better place to receive information. I think people are interested. I do get worried that if we move into November, I just get really nervous that we get lost. And then again, like I said, then we roll into budget season. But if there's a reason why people really feel strongly that we shouldn't do a Friday in October,
Monday.
I'm sorry, a Monday, never want to do a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday or even a Thursday, quite frankly. But Monday is the day of the week that is not, doesn't have like a heavy meeting load. But I mean, if the board does not want to do it, then we should not do it. But I do think we have to get it on a calendar if we're going to do it. So I would say the 21st or the 28th. But again, like if there's not an appetite to do it at all, we don't have to pick a date and we can just move it off the agenda. Thoughts?
I just think you should gauge interest, if maybe tie the three boards in, but still, if
I'm not sure how I would gauge interest ahead of time. And again, it's like, it's a meeting. So if people don't come, they don't come. And if they do, they do. I don't feel like we're not really expending
Mhm.
a ton of energy or
Towards the
cost.
28th.
And even if there's a video, I imagine that video could be used in a variety of ways. So if a video is produced to highlight the school, like I can imagine there's lots of places we could use that.
when's the next tri board? Is it
December 9th.
December? Was the last one well attended?
The last state of the district.
That's it. No, the tri boards. I'm just.
Do you mean the tri-board meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 3 people.
So
Yeah.
that's my concern, is making sure you're
Yeah,
gonna
but
get.
we're we're not necessarily engaging the public when we have a tri-board. We're engaging the three boards.
Right, right.
We're not, you know, when I.
And we're
mean-
not
I mean,
providing
I mean,
information, we're
we-
discussing
We
our
should
topics. our-
engage them for the tri-boards. They're important
No, we
meetings.
should,
Yeah.
but for this meeting, we would actually be engaging the public to come.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what kind of information we would be sharing?
I would really look to Troy to talk about that sort of stuff. I don't think it's anything that we talk about during budget season in terms of like, maybe necessarily our needs, but I think it's a nice opportunity to highlight the great thing that's like great things that are happening at our school without seeming like we're selling it. So at the budget, we've been told before, like, you're giving us kind of a hard sell by giving us all these like fluffy details about how great you guys are. Well, this is a nice opportunity for Troy to be able to do that without
Without asking for money.
without us saying, and for only 3.27%, like you get to have this great school system still. So it's just a nice, like, I don't think we have to talk about hard hitting issues.
Right.
It's a night to sort of celebrate what we do here in North Stonington and talk about like good things, not bad things. Yeah. So Lisa is suggesting that we do a straw poll about even hosting something like this.
Guess what do you want our involvement to be?
I think we should
Sorry.
help, we should help Troy to develop the things that we would like to support him in highlighting. And I guess if you want to show up, show up. And if you can't show up, you can't. Like, I don't think that anyone needs to like bake brownies or like, I don't know. I just like in the past, Christine, like it wasn't.
So it was very much board driven. It wasn't superintendent driven.
Yeah,
The
I'd like it to be
superintendent
Troy
spoke
driven.
shortly, but I think if you want to have a state of the district, it should be coming from the board, and you actually should be the one that's kind of standing
Happy
up.
to do it,
and-
but I'd like, I'd like Troy to be able to talk about, I mean, we can talk about successes of the board and we could talk about board goals and all that great stuff, but I'd really like to be able to celebrate
the school.
what's happening in our school, but
Yeah.
I'd like it to be fast.
Yeah.
And then Bob could talk about his great things and, whatever.
Yeah. So I guess I'm not opposed to it. I just, the format, I think
I like your tables idea.
we got to have some kind of format that's not somebody coming and having, and if it's not parents and maybe we're getting a different, demographic, that's fine. But I think anybody having to come to sit at a meeting at this point, when there are so many options for online and Zoom and videos and YouTubes, yeah, I think to do all of that and ask again, Troy to put energy into that for 5 people or 6 people, I don't know that it's worth it. So,
Yeah. But I do think
so I'd like us
sometimes,
to think about
right,
what
we-
it's going to look like.
we just have to take that risk. And there's nothing that says that we can't video it. You're right. So that it could be accessible, not just to people that were there that night, right? I mean, we have equipment. I don't think it's that difficult to relocate the equipment. But it would be a nice opportunity to get people through our building too.
Got an audience.
I was shocked when that woman said to me, I've never been inside of these buildings.
You could provide a meal, kind of sell tickets ahead of time, get people to come out and like free tickets maybe, like just, let us know so we know how much
Oh, an
pasta and
RSVP.
meatballs we're providing.
Are you cooking?
Well, no, I think this is a board event event. I think we're just talking about being more board event. I think I'm involved in the
Jamie's
presentation part.
cooking.
Jamie,
So I think, yeah. So what I'd really like to know is, do we want to do this? And are we okay with choosing a date so that I can work to coordinate with Bob and work with Troy a little bit so that when we meet on the 25th, we could sort of say, all right, this is what we're thinking. But I don't want to put that time into it if we don't want to do it.
Troy, you're gone the beginning of October, right?
Yes, that's why we do it at the end of October.
Well, no, but he's going to be preparing something between now and the end of October. I just want to make sure you feel comfortable.
Okay, thoughts. Chet, what are you thinking?
I mean, it's not asking much out of me, so
Okay.
sure.
Okay, Jamie.
I mean, I agree. As I support, but I don't know how much I can give
I don't know that there's much for us to give.
Well, and I guess that's kind of the thing though, is that are you and Troy willing to put in the time to put together a state of the district thing?
Yes.
If you are, then go for it.
Okay.
I'm
It would be nice to
I'm
have
willing to help.
board support there. That's a good
We
thought
support
for
you.
us, but
I'm willing to
um,
help with whatever you need.
it's bad if you can't get the board in the room. Right. And if people are going to be like, so Jamie, if you feel like this doesn't work for your sort of demographic, I don't think it will be helpful if you're like, yeah, the board's doing this. I don't think it really works. Like, I need also as boards that we are like ambassadors to the community saying, we want you to come to this.
I 100% support you. I just am
Got it,
saying
okay.
no, that I won't be there.
Okay.
So, but I
Okay.
will be very enthusiastic.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah. I think that it's going to take us to be ambassadors in the community. Lisa, I hear you as an ambassador.
I'm totally in, and if you need any help with anything, I'm happy to help.
So Jamie, do you prefer do you care? The 21st, the 28th? You don't care?
I'm just
Okay.
saying,
Okay. Troy,
I'll-
I think the 20th is better for you. Is
I'll
that
have
right?
to Practice on either night.
Fine, either of those. 28.
That gives us a little more time.
Yeah, I mean, the 21st, the 28th would be better. 'cause,
Yeah. I preferred it as well.
28th is
Alex,
perfect.
what do you think?
After this month.
Okay, fair enough. You think,
Personally, I think you should tie it into something. So you get
Okay.
more people to show up. So my opinion is you tie it in with something else so you get more people to show, opportunity to have more
Okay.
people show up.
28th is perfect for me.
okay. Judy,
I think the 28th works good too.
okay. Christine,
That's fine.
okay, right.
Sure.
Okay. I'll get back to you. All right, guys, I really thought that would be faster. October Board of Ed meeting. Troy's not here. We got to cancel the first one.
okay.
Does that work for
Done.
everybody?
Yes.
All right, so one meeting in October, one meeting in
Yes.
November, one meeting in December. Okay?
October is busy.
Yes,
No, that is the one. That is the one we're having.
Wait, what's
Wait.
the date?
The 10th we're not having.
We're not having the first October meeting.
Okay,
Which would be what?
October 23rd is the next.
okay.
No, not the next one. That's the one in October.
We're canceling the 9th
The 9th
Okay.
in October.
and we're only going to have the 23rd.
Love it.
But we do
October.
have-
And we are having the
25th.
meeting at the end of this
Okay.
month.
Yes.
because
Yes.
We're also doing the workshop.
Yep.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
have another meeting and we have a
And a
workshop.
workshop.
We're September heavy, but remember, we're going down to one meeting for October, November, December.
So that makes sense. All balances out.
Yeah,
Except for Jamie,
And-
who's staying home.
And a tri-board in December.
yeah.
Okay, relax. All right. So good. So we're getting rid of that October date. Everybody's good. Troy, Cub Club update.
Okay.
Okay.
Very briefly, in the next meeting, I'm gonna have, is it next meeting or October? I think I think it's end of October. No, it's the next meeting. It's the September 25th. We're gonna have Deb Dwyer come, the director of Cub Club.
I thought we were doing that in October.
You're right, it's October. We
Yeah.
put that on the agenda already. It's October 23rd. We're gonna have Deb Dwyer come and do a Cub Club update because we'll have the financials for September. So we'll be able to see and we'll have time to get that ready. But here's a quick update. Cub Club morning times, morning numbers. Mondays, morning 17, Tuesday 16 kids, Wednesday 18 kids, Thursday 17 kids, Friday 15 kids. Afternoons, Monday 23 kids, Tuesday 24 kids, Wednesday 22 kids, Thursday 21, and Friday 20. Those are September. That's what's going on currently. We are taking signups for October still, so we don't know the numbers. We'll know when Deb comes in October. We have staff. Yes, we're putting an ad out for another staff member. We do have a high school student who is employed in the district, in the program, in the education pathway too. So it's like a win-win.
So what's the ratio for staff to kids right now?
We're trying to keep it 1 to 10, 1 to 12-ish. We're trying. It doesn't always work that way.
So what
Uh,
does that mean? It does not, like, sometimes we have more staff?
Well, there's one time we had one adult to 17 kids, this week actually, and I actually showed up for part of it,
Okay,
because we had two staff members who were out sick.
okay.
So we're continuing to build our backup
Mhm.
systems for coverage. In fact, we just got a new person today to say they would be backup.
Cool.
And it's someone who's employed in the district. So we're continuing to do that. We didn't think we'd have two people out at one time. But you never know. So we got a plan for backup. We don't want to ever have to cancel the program because we don't have staff. So I went and looked at all the supplies they have in the cabinet. We've spent $140 on some supplies, but that's it. The rest of them are been obtained free, or the director had them in her supplies from years of doing this kind of work. Lots of games, crafts, Legos, that type of stuff. So it's going well. The kids seem happy, what I could tell. Parents seem to appreciate it, that it's so convenient. The kids are dropped off where they're going to be. They're picked up where they were. So we're optimistic that it's going to work, and we have to just analyze the finances of it. And we'll have that for you end of October when Deb comes in. She'll be able to explain more about the program. She's already got, she's coordinating with some kind of like guest speakers, enrichment type programs to come in certain days in October. And is going to advertise that to, and maybe actually do a field trip there's a PD day in November. And she might do like a full day field trip to the Science Center or something like that. So she's got all these ideas, and it's going well. She'll be able to explain much more when she comes.
Thanks, Troy.
I was just going to add a quick parent perspective on it, just because of the fact that I do have both of my boys in there. I can tell you both of my boys have been asking me to get them up earlier so that we can go. It's been super fun for them. They have the opportunity. I mean, there's art stuff going on. Are games in the gym going on. They've got a chance to be up and moving and running around and doing things in the morning. And I think that our facilities provide such a great space to be able to allow the kids to actually have programming and stuff going on that they want to be a part of, instead of just holding space where you're going to have kids for a little while because they need to be there and they're just working on homework and that's it. Like they're having a blast, and it has been super easy. It's been really easy to do the drop off. The process has been very simple, and I'm really excited to have it continue to grow. So
I just had a couple questions. So were you saying you're still building the October program catalog? Or is it live?
Oh, it's live. You can sign up.
Okay,
Yeah, you can sign up now. People can sign up.
okay,
There was a technical glitch with Arlie for a couple days, and we got them working on it, and they've resolved it. So it could have been that someone was locked out for a day or two and couldn't get in, but we're taking registrations through September 23rd for October.
okay, okay. And then my other question is, do you find that the hours are working?
It seems so. When I was there, a lot of kids got picked up way before 5:30, some as early as a little after 4, and then a lot by 5 o'clock, and then there was only a handful left at 5:30, and it goes to 5:30. And not many kids are getting dropped off right at 6:30 in the morning. But you know, it seems to be working.
And I just have one question too. The numbers are awesome. I'm getting a sense that you're spending a lot of time on it. And how long do you think that's going to last? Because it was supposed to be running solely by the director and her staff. And when I hear that our superintendent's doing aftercare, I'm
Right.
concerned.
I wasn't really doing that. I was just checking in on her because I knew she was,
Right.
solo that day. And, but, yeah, you're right. Like I shouldn't have to do that. Reality is we're a small district and we wear multiple hats around here and we chip in to get things done. I mean, I got a central office that's down one member now
Right.
also, but once we have that member working too, that'll also alleviate some of it, because there's some of it that has to do with contacting parents to help with payments that they have difficulty making, and that kind of thing.
And the central office is doing that.
If we want to do that part. And
Okay.
not have Deb do that piece so much. She has done some of that piece, but we want her to focus on the programming piece and not the finances of it so much.
Okay.
We want my central office to support that. And we think we'll be able to do that once we get a new person. in.
Okay.
So
Thank
I
you.
think it will be, the workload will be alleviated. And once we get all this, the backups totally set up for running the program, I think we'll be good to go. We're getting there.
Okay.
I think it's an investment worth it.
Thanks for your work on it, Troy.
Sure.
It's exciting. Okay, we don't have any new business. On to our policy and advocacy discussion. You see, policy 5114, we talked about this at our last meeting, but we had sort of the weird policy. So Troy gave us the one that we really should be looking at. He's run this by his administrators. If anybody has any questions about it, Troy could probably answer those, and then we can go ahead and take a motion to accept the new policy. Troy, is there anything you want to say?
Yeah,
about the
just,
policy?
I ran, again, through this with my administrative team today, just to make sure that, they're all fine with what this says. They are all aware, they were aware of all the changes that are necessary because of new laws, which are basically in red. One of the major changes is that in-school suspension is to a maximum of 5 days. And out-of-school suspension, you can still do 10 days, but if the child is pre-K through 2, it is a maximum of 5 days. But it's out-of-school suspension is only for certain, pretty serious offenses, which was the case anyway. And then there is the other major thing is a teacher can request a meeting to really look at the behavior of a child. So if they have someone of concern in their classroom and they could, request a meeting needs to happen with a team and parents need to be notified of the results of that meeting. And so that's another change. So this really just reflects the new laws, and the administrative team, they were aware, and I checked with them today and they're good with this.
And Troy, the teachers are aware of that new stipulation they have the right to request a meeting.
Well,
Within I believe it's within 24 hours
Right.
of the event.
Yeah, I think that I'm gonna hope that the principals communicated that, but if they haven't, I'll double check with them on that. Cause you're right. Teachers need to know that.
I mean, it's a protection for them as much as it is for the family and the child.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So we'll double check that they communicated it. I guess I'm assuming they probably did, but I will double check.
Does someone want to make a motion and then we can continue any other questions and discussion?
I move to accept policy 5114, suspension, expulsion, due process.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Any other questions or comments about policy 5114? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Right, we have a new policy. I had bylaws first read on here before talking to Chet and Lisa. We don't have any, so we can move past that. The last thing is just policy procedures. I realized that after we got them last time, they were super confusing. So obviously, we're gonna want the policies earlier than we saw them last time so that we can really look at them. But I wonder if, when we do our first read, if Chet and Lisa are comfortable, would you be able during the first read to say, here's the new policy. This is either a brand new policy because of this reason, or a replacement policy because of this reason, and then in some way like highlight the changes. Sometimes it's just confusing when there's a bunch of pages, and then if we do that at the first read, then we all sort of know what we're reading for the discussion in the second time. Does that feel comfortable? Or is that putting too much work?
I
in place?
I think that's usually what we did when we were the ones bringing the policies. The problem was when the policy showed up and it wasn't me bringing the policy
Right, when
forward
it
or
was
Lisa
from
bringing
Troy
it
and the
forward, then I
administration.
don't,
Yeah.
I'm getting it at the same time as anybody
It
else.
would not be, it would be whomever is bringing that policy forward would do
Okay,
that.
I
A little bit
Yeah.
at the workshop about how we decide what policies to bring forward and what format we're using and how we're using like the quarterlies and the reports that we're paying for through CABE and everything like that.
I could put that on our
I think that would be really helpful.
agenda.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right, well, that's all I wanted to talk about for policy. Board of Ed member comments for future agenda items.
I just have a quick comment, Troy. I sent you a picture of the signs a while back for the entry of both of the schools.
You
Can we
did.
look into that about the times?
I still have a sticky on it on my desk.
They,
And I have discussed it with administrators. I just have to follow up and,
Okay.
and see where we're at with that.
thank you.
I had a feeling you would bring it up again. Your memory is impressive.
Thank you.
Anyone else want something to be put on an agenda in future? Okay. Public comment? We still don't have any public here. Any comments online? All right then, does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone.
It's hot in here.
There it is.
Okay, so it's the